Okay, welcome back. So, from the last tutorial, we created this database page. We set the registration look, and then we set the login look, right, which was our main activity and the other activities that we created here in this package. So now we'll be moving on to creating the we're going to be creating two methods for the pages. We're going to be creating the login method, method. Yeah, that's good. And then the other one we're going to be creating is the register method. Yeah, cool. So yes, so now it's easier to do the registration method because it's quick and easy. So what you want to do is, this is going to be a void method because we're not going to be returning anything. So we just say public void. I like to just, well, you can literally say whatever you want. You can just say QWERTY, or you can say this is the oops, sorry, I'm used to spacebar. This is the registration method. Then you can just put brackets. Then we're getting anything? Yes, we are getting something. So we just put in the strings here. Put in the string. Say string input username and string input password. Yeah, just like that. And then boom. But I'm not going to call this that because it's too long, so I can just say this is database register. Yeah, like that. I'm happy with that. You happy with that, guys? Cool. Alright, so next thing we need is we need we need to make this a writable database. So what we're going to have to do is we import SQL database and say db, which equals this, which is the context, dot get writable database, like this, and then whoop, we're golden. Alright, cool. The next thing that we need is a content values. Now the content values acts as a store of values, so we can just say store value. So it stores values, and then we just create a object of this. Sorry, forgot new. Cool. Yeah, this is how we create an object in Java, if you don't know, but that's okay. So once we have the values here, we can now start saying store values, or store value. Which value? Store value put. You have to put the value inside. Oops. So brackets. Now we put the value that we want. So it shows us here that we either need to put a string key and then a string value. So the key is going to relate to the value. So the key here meaning that the database value that we're inserting. So the column name is the first key, right? And then in the column name we're putting what? The input value from the user. So like this, then we close it. Wonderful. Then we do the same thing for the password. Store value dot put, right, our brackets, column pass, right, comma, input, password, and we close. Now we write to the database using an input method. So we say db dot input, insert. Oops. I should say database insert. But register is still fine because it is the registration method. So I'll just leave it like that. So now we say db.insert. Then the first thing we do is we reference our table name to say where we're inserting. So table name, put a comma there, hit a space. The next thing that we're going to put here is a null, right? Because we're not putting any column hex. And then hit comma, and then the last thing we do is the values that we are storing into the database, which would be the store value, like that, and then you close. Like this, our method is complete, just like this. Now when we go to the registration page to implement this method, we would want to implement this constructor. Where is it? Yes, we would like to implement this constructor here. So how would we do that? We would have to call it here and say database helper, and we would just say database helper equals new database helper with the context of, see, it's asking for the context because here we've signed a context, so we're going to say this should be our context, meaning this file here. Okay, then now we will set our values for, no, you don't do it here, I'm tripping, guys. Alright, so here is where we would say edit text, and we have the username, and we have the password, and we have one text view, which is the activity login, or we can say activity title, Ooh, my spelling. Right, activity title, and we have two buttons. So button, we have the login button, and we have create account button. Right, so this is a method of saving space. Instead of writing edit text username, edit text password, text view activity this, login button, it just saves space and looks neater and just makes more sense to me. It just does. So here now we're going to just finish off the registration method. Ooh, my laptop is hot. Anyway, so from here we would declare the edit text, so the activity title.this, right? And we would equal to find view by id, r.id dot, I've already labeled it here, so the login text title, and then close it like that. So we can just go to our registration activity and you can see the IDs that we need. This is the registration title, this one. Here we got the register username, which is this tab here, the ID for this edit text. This edit text ID here is register password. This one here is the registration button, so it's called register button. So actually here this button is not there. This is on the login side, so this is just fine. So here I can just say this is the activity title text, which is what it is. The next one, these are the edit, these are the user input fields, so that would be username, so it's capital U, username, find view by ID, r.id.register who, username. Next one is password, capital P, find view by ID, r.id.register password. And then we have, last but not least, the register button. Ooh, yes. Okay. Oops. That's better. Just rename that to register button, so you can reference it there. Register button, find view by ID, r.id.register button, just like that. Right, now we've named everything in the fields. What's left? To assign this button a view, so just write the register button again, put a dot to call a method, set on click listener, so you can, if it doesn't come out straight, you can just write set on click listener, listener. So it'll be here, just hit enter, then write new space, then capital V for view, and then hit enter, and then it will create this method for you automatically. Thank you, Java. Then here you would have to set the user values to strings because you can't get them. So basically this is where you get the user values, right? You don't know, that's why you're watching this video, but this is sorry, this is where you get it. So here you would write string and then assign the string, so you can say user input name, right, like this if you want, but you can call it anything, or you can just write username. Okay, but just for you guys, I'll just say input username, so you'll know, which equals what, the username, right, which is the edit text, dot get text, because you're getting the text, right, dot what you need it to be, a string. If you write to trim, it's just a formality thing. If you don't want spaces, or like if the user didn't enter a value but he added a space, it will remove that. So it is good to practice with the to trim, so I'll just put it there for now because I want to flex. Leave me alone. Anyway, yeah, so you can just say input, then you go password equals what, password dot get text, right, dot to string, right, dot trim. Awesome. Yeah, now we've got our strings, we can now implement the database method. Awesome. Now we implement the database method by using our database object, which we created up here, which is the database helper. So we can just reference database helper. Wonderful. Now we just press dot. Okay, what do we need? We need this method called database register, and which requires a string input username and a string input password that we made. So we can just say input username, comma, input password, and that's a simple login. Done and dusted. You're done. But in a case that you want to put some conditions to say, okay, we don't want them to enter empty values. So what you can say is if the username dot is empty. Oh. Why is it the other way around? These are the strings. Let me say input username dot is empty, right? And input password also is empty. Then you can create a toast to say field. So create a toast. You guys know how to create toasts, right? Toast dot make toast. Then you add the context. The context, you can say this, right? Then you can just say, basically context refer to where you're basically referencing it. So you can say this, you can say get application context, you know, you can reference the actual context, which is this place. You can say register activity, but you still got to say dot thus, right? But saying this is the same thing, so it just depends on you. So for typing purposes, I'm just gonna write this, and then I'm going to add a string, or you can say you can just say error, but you can say whatever you really want to say. Like maybe you can, but it's best when you're doing these how can I explain, when you're doing, you're getting an error. Okay, let me just say register activity, just put a dot here. Right, so no errors. So it's best when you're referencing, like when you're talking about your database errors, you shouldn't give away too much information about what's wrong with your database, because that's not a good practice of security. So it's best to just write simple things like fields cannot be empty, or must fill in all fields, or you can just say all fields must be filled, something like that. That's good enough. Just don't give away too much information. And then here you can just say else what happens, this happens, you input the data. Oh, come on. I code like this because I like it when you close, it just looks like this, and it just looks like super neat. So this is a nice thing to practice if you're a person who's big on enhancing the way you code and your style, because it makes maintenance look much easier. When somebody looks at your code, they're just going to see this and be like, oh wonderful, this guy codes so nicely. So according to this is how you would do it. And if they had entered, So let's say, okay, if they've entered it correctly, you want to take them back to the login. So if registration is successful, take the user back to the login page, right? So basically you create your toast again because you want your user to know that he's entered. He doesn't want to just, like, if you just pop him back into the login page, he won't know what has happened. So you have to tell him, okay, no, you did it correctly, right? So you just say registration was successful. Successful. Yeah. Comma, you set the length of your toast. Length, short, don't want to make it too long. Done. Then you create an intent. There's two ways you can create an intent. I just create an intent in the short way. So take user back to login. So usually how you create an intent, you say intent, and then you give the intent a name. So intent, and then you basically you create an object of an intent, right? So intent, and then you say start activity intent, I think, yeah, that, put in the intent, registration activity dot this, comma, main activity dot class. Yeah, just like this. This is how you would make an intent, but I don't like doing it like this because, as you can see, it takes up space. So coding is all about reducing space. So I can just say start activity new intent, then just reference. So you can say this, like most people like doing, and then main activity dot class. Oh, doesn't know what this is. Okay, so just reg like this. This is fine. This will work. This is better. This looks sexy. This is what you must do, right? So like this, when he runs it, you'll get taken back to the next page. Alright, on the next tutorial I'll show you how to do the login and how to reference from the login page to this, then we will run it. Thank you for watching. See you next time.